October 25, 1944, aboard the USS Enterprise in the Philippine Sea, was a day etched in the annals of naval warfare. Gunner's mate second class Tommy Rodriguez found himself in a harrowing predicament, his hands firmly grasping the controls of his 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft gun. The piercing shriek of the general quarters alarm sliced through the oppressive, humid Pacific air, signaling an imminent threat. Above the vast expanse of the carrier's flight deck, a menacing formation of Japanese Yokosuka D-4Y dive bombers descended with terrifying speed, inaugurating the first organized kamikaze assault in the history of naval combat. "Here they come!" Rodriguez's voice, a raw cry of alarm, cut through the din as he alerted his gun crew. The enemy aircraft, accelerating past 400 mph, emitted a haunting, banshee-like shriek as they plunged relentlessly towards the American task force. Rodriguez, with a desperate urgency, attempted to align his gun to track the leading bomber, but its erratic, blistering speed rendered his efforts futile. His conventional ring sight, designed to indicate the present position of the enemy plane, offered no foresight into its future trajectory, the critical point where his shells would ideally intercept. He unleashed a barrage of rapid bursts, watching in dismay as his tracers arced harmlessly behind the rapidly diving kamikaze. All around him, a cacophony of dozens of other anti-aircraft guns thundered in a desperate, futile symphony, their shells detonating in the vast, empty expanse of the sky, as the Japanese pilots inexorably closed the distance to their American targets. Unbeknownst to Rodriguez and his crew, their vessel harbored a revolutionary clandestine weapon, a device so profoundly advanced that the Navy's highest echelons had initially dismissed it as an insane and impossible fantasy. This shoebox-sized marvel, conceived by a Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor, utterly devoid of military credentials, was on the precipice of irrevocably altering the landscape of naval warfare, poised to redefine combat forever. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The statistical evidence presented a damning indictment of existing anti-aircraft capabilities. In the initial 2 years of the Pacific War, American anti-aircraft guns achieved a dismal kill rate of merely 3.2%, translating to a meager 3 enemy aircraft downed for every 100 shells expended. Japanese pilots exploited this glaring vulnerability, attacking American ships with virtual impunity, their survival contingent primarily on sheer speed and a measure of good fortune. By October 1944, American naval forces had discharged a staggering 400,000 anti-aircraft rounds in active combat, yet had registered approximately 12 of 800 hits on enemy aircraft, a catastrophic failure rate that left American vessels perilously exposed to the increasingly desperate and audacious Japanese offensives. The advent of the kamikaze threat further exacerbated this critical situation, transforming every enemy aircraft into a guided missile, as Japanese pilots no longer sought to survive their suicidal missions. Traditional anti-aircraft tactics, designed to deter and discourage attacking pilots, proved utterly ineffectual against adversaries resolutely committed to their demise. The gunners, in their frantic struggle, were unaware that the solution to their predicament lay within the brilliant intellect of Dr. E. Charles Stark Draper, an MIT professor whose unorthodox approach to fire control was destined to revolutionize aerial warfare and ultimately preserve countless American lives in the concluding year of World War II, The persistent challenge of accurately engaging fast-moving aircraft had vexed military engineers since the Great War. By 1941, American anti-aircraft guns possessed the capability to propel shells at immense velocities. However, striking a maneuvering target hurtling at 300 mph demanded a level of mathematical precision that human gunners simply could not attain. The core dilemma revolved around lead calculation, precisely determining the point of aim when firing at a dynamic target. A shell discharged from a 40mm Bofors gun required approximately 3 seconds to traverse the 4,000 yards to an aircraft. Within that crucial 3-second window, an enemy plane traveling at 400 mm would cover nearly 1,800 feet. Gunners were thus compelled to aim at an empty expanse of sky, fervently hoping that their shells and the target would converge at the same precise point simultaneously. Conventional anti-aircraft sights, essentially rudimentary iron rings, merely indicated where the weapons were currently directed. However, enemy aircraft refused to conform to predictable straight-line trajectories or constant speeds. They executed dives, ascents, banks, and spirals, creating a complex, three-dimensional puzzle that human reflexes were inherently incapable of solving with the requisite speed and accuracy. The Navy's Bureau of Ordnance had explored numerous potential remedies. Fire control directors, employing mechanical computers, could calculate lead angles, but these room-sized apparatuses proved too intricate for rapid target adjustments and excessively fragile for the rigors of shipboard deployment. Attempts to devise automated tracking systems foundered due to the non-existence of technology capable of reliably following maneuvering targets. The prevailing expert consensus held that the problem was fundamentally insurmountable. Admiral William Halsey in 1942 famously declared, "Anti-aircraft gunnery is more art than science. We can teach our boys to point and shoot, but we cannot teach machines to think like fighter pilots." The Bureau of Ordnance consequently awarded development contracts to its established suppliers, Westinghouse, General Electric, and the Ford Instrument Company. Their proposed solutions involved colossal mechanical calculators, necessitating teams of operators and continuous maintenance. None of these proved practical for the unforgiving conditions of combat. Concurrently, the stakes continued their alarming ascent. The German Luftwaffe had starkly demonstrated the efficacy of precision bombing against British urban centers, while Japanese naval aviation had proven devastating at Pearl Harbor. American ships were in desperate need of effective anti-aircraft defenses, yet their current weaponry achieved hit rates barely surpassing random chance. The pattern of failed solutions was disturbingly consistent. Engineers approached the problem with conventional paradigms, devising elaborate mechanical contraptions that sought to supplant human judgment with mechanical computation. While these systems functioned adequately in controlled laboratory environments, they invariably faltered in combat scenarios where targets maneuvered unpredictably and split-second timing dictated survival or destruction. By the spring of 1941, the situation had escalated to one of profound desperation. German U-boats were sinking Allied merchant vessels at a rate exceeding their replacement capacity, while Japanese naval forces posed an escalating threat to American positions throughout the Pacific. American warships were equipped with anti-aircraft guns that could barely hit their intended targets, rendering them perilously susceptible to aerial assaults. The Bureau of Ordnance's Fire Control Section, under the leadership of Lieutenant Commander Marion Murphy, faced escalating pressure to resolve the intractable anti-aircraft problem. Traditional approaches had reached their limits, and time was rapidly dwindling. America was on the precipice of entering a war where air power would undeniably dominate naval operations. Yet American ships conspicuously lacked effective air defense capabilities. The Navy's senior command, however, obstinately refused to acknowledge the true gravity of the crisis. High-ranking officers steadfastly insisted that improved training and an increased number of guns would suffice to resolve the issue, willfully disregarding the mathematical reality that human reflexes were simply incapable of calculating three-dimensional intercepts with sufficient speed for modern aerial combat. This pervasive institutional blindness fostered a lethal feedback loop. Failed solutions continued to receive more funding and development time, while truly innovative approaches were summarily dismissed as impractical or impossible. Navy bureaucrats, in an effort to safeguard their reputations, attributed the failures to inadequate gunner training, rather than confronting the fundamental technological limitations at play. The devastating human cost of this systemic failure became agonizingly clear in the opening months of the Pacific War. Japanese aircraft attacked American ships with minimal losses, while American anti-aircraft fire remained largely ineffectual. Sailors watched in helpless horror as enemy bombers and torpedo planes approached their vessels, painfully aware that their defensive weaponry offered scant protection against determined attackers. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cambridge, May 1940. Dr. Charles Stark Draper sat in the MIT faculty dining room, his sleeve casually rolled up as he meticulously sketched complex mathematical equations on a napkin. At 38 years old, Doc Draper possessed no military credentials, no formal weapons training, and absolutely no prior experience with naval gunnery. His academic specialization lay in precision instrumentation, a field so esoteric that the majority of Navy officers would have struggled to articulate his professional calling. Draper's unconventional background made him an improbable candidate to ignite a revolution in warfare. His doctoral research had centered on gyroscopic instruments, specifically devices engineered to measure rotation and orientation with microscopic precision. While Navy engineers were preoccupied with designing colossal fire control computers, Draper dedicated his efforts to spinning wheels no larger than silver dollars. His colleagues at MIT recognized him as an eccentric genius renowned for approaching problems from refreshingly unexpected angles. His students affectionately referred to him as Doc, due to his unwavering insistence on hands-on experimentation over purely theoretical analysis. His laboratory, indeed, bore a striking resemblance to a machinist's workshop, rather than a typical university research facility, replete with lathes, drill presses, and an array of precision measuring instruments. The pivotal breakthrough occurred during a seemingly ordinary lunch with pilots and engineers from the Sperry Gyroscope Company. They had been rigorously testing Draper's latest invention, a rate of turn indicator designed to assist pilots in accurately determining the speed at which their aircraft were banking. This ingenious device utilized a compact gyroscope to measure rotational movement with extraordinary accuracy. During the meal, someone produced a newspaper, its headline screaming about the relentless advance of German tanks through France. The conversation naturally gravitated towards potential military applications of their ongoing work, and a pilot casually remarked on the inherent difficulty of striking moving targets from aircraft. French gunners, the pilot elaborated, could consistently hit a stationary target, but they were utterly incapable of hitting anything that was moving swiftly. Draper abruptly ceased eating, his gaze fixed intently on his gyroscopic turn indicator. His engineering mind instantly grasped the profound connection between precisely measuring aircraft rotation and accurately calculating firing solutions for moving targets. If a gyroscope possessed the capability to determine the rate at which an aircraft was turning, it could, by logical extension, also predict that aircraft's future position. What if we could make the gun sight automatically lead the target? Draper quietly mused, the seeds of a monumental invention taking root. Can it truly anticipate the target's future position? Draper pondered, his voice barely a whisper. A profound stillness settled over the assembly. The notion of a purely mechanical apparatus predicting a moving object's trajectory, thereby calculating the optimal aiming point, seemed utterly beyond the realm of possibility. Yet, Draper perceived the sheer mathematical beauty inherent in such a solution. His gyroscopic mechanism, he reasoned, did not require inherent intelligence. It merely demanded unyielding precision. In the ensuing weeks, Draper found himself consumed by the innovative concept of a lead computing site. He diligently acquired every available treatise on ballistics and fire control, immersing himself in the intricate physics governing projectile motion and target interception. His workspace became a veritable sanctuary of knowledge, overflowing with meticulous computations delineating trajectory mathematics, the nuanced mechanics of gyroscopes, and the sophisticated principles of optical sight design. Draper's unique insight was nothing short of groundbreaking. Rather than attempting to entirely supplant human judgment with cold mechanical computation, he envisioned a system that would elevate and enhance human reflexes through the unwavering accuracy of gyroscopic technology. The gunner, he maintained, would continue to actively track the target and initiate the firing sequence, but the sight itself would autonomously adjust the aiming point, thereby compensating for the target's dynamic movement. By September 1940, he had meticulously articulated the theoretical underpinnings for his revolutionary lead computing sight. This ingenious device would harness a compact gyroscope to precisely gauge the speed at which a gunner was following a moving target, subsequently and automatically offsetting the sight's aiming point to furnish the correct lead angle. It was an idea so elegantly straightforward that seasoned engineers had inexplicably overlooked it, yet simultaneously so profoundly revolutionary that it was destined to forever alter the landscape of aerial warfare. MIT, Instrumentation, Laboratory, September 1940, 2200 hours. Dr. D. Draper toiled in solitude within his subterranean laboratory, a space surrounded by an array of sophisticated machine tools and finely calibrated precision instruments. Upon his workbench rested a nascent prototype, an assemblage that bore a closer resemblance to a student's science project than a sophisticated military implement, a rectangular metallic enclosure, roughly the dimensions of a shoebox, interconnected to a .122 caliber rifle via a network of cables and specialized mounting brackets. This unassuming shoebox housed Draper's pioneering invention, a gyroscope no larger than a silver dollar, spinning at an astonishing rate of 24,000 revolutions per minute, meticulously coupled to an optical system that projected an illuminated reticle onto a piece of angled glass. The moment a gunner engaged in tracking a moving target, The gyroscope would meticulously measure the rate of movement, and with astonishing autonomy, adjust the aiming point to precisely account for the target's anticipated future position. Draper had dedicated a rigorous 6 months to the painstaking refinement of this device, diligently laboring through evenings and weekends, all while steadfastly upholding his demanding regular teaching commitments. The entire undertaking remained strictly unofficial. MIT at that juncture possessed no formal contracts for the development of weaponry, and the United States military had thus far displayed a conspicuous lack of interest in gyroscopic gun sights. Tonight marked the inaugural live-fire test of his groundbreaking lead computing sight. Draper meticulously secured the modified rifle onto a sturdy pipe stand, providing essential support for the additional mass of his prototype device. He had ingeniously contrived a rudimentary target system, a simple white towel affixed to a rope, designed to traverse the laboratory space in a rhythmic pendulum-like motion. This oscillating towel served as an effective simulation of an aircraft traversing a gunner's field of view. The initial shot missed its mark entirely. Draper's intricate calculations proved to be marginally inaccurate, resulting in the sight providing an excessive lead. He made precise adjustments to the gyroscope settings and fired once more, achieving a closer proximity, yet still trailing behind the moving target. For a sustained period of 3 hours, Draper discharged single shots at his improvised target, making painstaking adjustments to the sight's mechanical components after each unsuccessful attempt. Gradually, the system exhibited a marked improvement. By the stroke of midnight, he was consistently striking the moving towel, an accomplishment that would have been virtually unachievable with conventional iron sights. The true breakthrough manifested itself with his final shot of the evening. The towel arced across his field of view at a slight angle, artfully simulating an aircraft executing a banking turn. Draper tracked the target with fluid precision, allowing his gyroscopic sight to automatically compute the optimal lead angle. He gently squeezed the trigger. The bullet tore cleanly through the very center of the moving towel. Draper gazed at the outcome in profound astonishment. His unassuming crude prototype had just achieved something that military experts widely considered an impossibility. It had autonomously calculated the correct firing solution for a target engaged in complex maneuvering. The implications of this achievement were nothing short of staggering. The following morning, Draper presented his compelling test results to his contacts at the Sperry Gyroscope Company. The company's engineers scrutinized his prototype with an air of skepticism, noting its unrefined construction and unconventional design. "This appears to be something you might have assembled in your own garage," remarked the chief engineer with a hint of disdain. "Indeed, I did construct it in my garage," Draper responded calmly, his composure unwavering. The Sperry engineers then proceeded to examine the gyroscopic mechanism with considerably greater care, gradually discerning the inherent precision and sophisticated engineering concealed beneath its rough exterior. The underlying mathematical principles were undeniably sound, and the undeniable test results spoke volumes. However, when Draper subsequently presented his revolutionary invention to military representatives, the reaction was both immediate and overtly hostile. "This is utterly preposterous," declared a Navy ordnance officer, his voice dripping with incredulity. "You propose to attach a spinning top to a firearm and expect it to accurately hit airborne targets? That is simply impossible." The room erupted in a chorus of dismissive laughter. Yet Draper remained unshaken in his conviction. He had personally witnessed his invention in operation, and he possessed an unshakable certainty that it was destined to fundamentally transform aerial warfare. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please also leave a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Bureau of Ordnance, Navy Department, Washington, D.C., May 28, 1941. Lieutenant Commander Marion Murphy escorted Dr. Draper through the expansive corridors of the Navy's most influential technical bureau, past offices bustling with engineering blueprints and meticulously crafted scale models of colossal fire control systems. Their destination was a pivotal meeting, one that would ultimately determine whether Draper's groundbreaking gun sight would garner official endorsement or vanish into the bureaucratic abyss of obscurity. The conference room contained a distinguished assembly of 12 senior officers and civilian engineers, representing the Navy's most brilliant technical minds. Seated prominently at the head of the table was Captain William Blandy, the esteemed chief of the Bureau of Ordnance's Research and Development Division, the very individual whose crucial approval Draper desperately needed to advance his project. "Gentlemen," Murphy commenced, addressing the assembled experts, "Dr. Draper has successfully developed a gyroscopic gun sight that automatically computes lead angles for targets in motion. This device weighs less than 20 pounds and remarkably requires no external power source." Captain Ralph Christie, the Bureau's acknowledged expert in fire control, immediately interjected, "Lead computing sites have been explored in the past. They typically necessitate room-sized mechanical calculators and dedicated teams of operators. How could a mere 20-pound device possibly execute such complex calculations?" Draper rose from his seat and carefully placed his prototype on the conference table. The crude metal box immediately drew skeptical glances from the assembled experts. "This device does not calculate," Draper calmly clarified. "It measures. The gyroscope detects the speed at which the gunner is tracking a moving target, then automatically adjusts the sight picture to provide the correct lead angle." The room erupted in a chorus of objections. "That is impossible," declared a Westinghouse engineer, his voice filled with incredulity. "Lead calculations demand precise knowledge of target speed, altitude, and bearing. You cannot accurately measure those critical variables with a simple gyroscope. The entire system is fundamentally flawed," added a representative from the Ford Instrument Company. "Combat gunnery mandates mechanical precision that human operators simply cannot consistently provide. Your device, Dr. Draper, relies on gunner skill rather than effectively eliminating human error." Captain Christie forcefully pounded the table to command attention. "We have invested millions of dollars in the development of proven fire control technologies. These sophisticated mechanical calculators represent decades of relentless engineering advancement. You are asking us to abandon established scientific principles for what amounts to some spinning toy." Draper maintained his composure as the criticism intensified around him. He had encountered academic skepticism numerous times before, and he understood implicitly that truly revolutionary ideas invariably faced staunch resistance from entrenched experts. "Would you care for a demonstration?" he inquired simply, his voice steady. A profound silence descended upon the room. no one present genuinely expected the crude prototype to actually function. 2 days later, the identical group reconvened at the Watertown Arsenal firing range. Draper meticulously mounted his modified .22 caliber rifle onto a shooting stand, while Lieutenant Commander Murphy expertly operated a mechanical device designed to pull targets across the range at varying speeds and angles. The first target materialized, a stark white panel traversing from left to right at approximately 30 miles per hour. Draper shouldered his rifle, tracked the target through his gyroscopic sight, and fired. The bullet struck the moving panel dead center. Murmurs of genuine surprise rippled through the gathered observers. "Again," commanded Captain Blandy. The second target moved with greater velocity and followed a more erratic trajectory. Draper tracked it smoothly, allowing his innovative sight to autonomously calculate the precise lead angle. Another flawless hit. By the fifth consecutive strike on the moving targets, the initial skepticism had completely dissolved, replaced by unadulterated amazement. Captain Christie approached the rifle and meticulously examined the intricate gyroscopic sight mechanism. "How does it actually work?" he inquired quietly, his voice now imbued with genuine curiosity. Draper patiently elucidated the underlying physics. The gyroscope, he explained, accurately measured angular velocity, the rate at which the gunner was turning, to precisely follow a moving target. Since angular velocity directly correlated to the required lead angle, the sight possessed the remarkable ability to automatically provide the correct aiming point without needing to ascertain the target's actual speed or distance. Captain Blandy then made the momentous decision that would forever alter the course of naval warfare. "I require specifications and pricing for 50 experimental units. If this device performs as convincingly as demonstrated, we will undoubtedly need thousands of them." The room erupted once more, but this time the sound was one of exhilaration rather than skepticism. Officers and engineers alike crowded around Draper's prototype, eagerly posing technical questions and animatedly discussing the myriad possibilities for its widespread implementation. The initial discussions involved intricate technical questions and the meticulous exploration of various implementation possibilities for this groundbreaking concept. Peaked. Lieutenant Horatio Rivero, a distinguished alumnus of MIT and a former student of Professor Draper, approached his esteemed mentor with profound and evident reverence. "Doc, you've just solved the biggest problem in naval gunnery," he exclaimed, recognizing the monumental scope of the invention. Remarkably, less than a full day later, the United States Navy formally commissioned its initial procurement, ordering a dozen experimental Mark 14 gun sights. This groundbreaking instrument, previously deemed unfeasible and even insane by many established experts in the field, was destined to become standard issue across the entire American naval fleet, equipping every significant warship. On January 15, 1943, at the esteemed Naval Proving Ground in Virginia, Commander Arthur McDonald was tasked with supervising what would prove to be the most extensive and rigorous weapons evaluation ever conducted in the annals of naval history. With meticulous precision, skilled technicians diligently affixed the initial production models of the Mark 14 gun sights onto formidable 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns. The ensuing statistical outcomes of these trials would critically dictate whether Dr. Draper's innovative creation would be adopted as indispensable, standard-issue hardware for the entirety of the United States Navy. The methodology employed for these evaluations was characterized by an unyielding and exacting precision. Unmanned target drones traversed meticulously pre-programmed flight paths, simulating diverse combat scenarios by varying speeds, altitudes, and approach vectors, as dedicated gun crews discharged controlled bursts of ammunition. Sophisticated electronic recording devices meticulously logged each round expended and every successful impact, thereby generating an unimpeachable, quantitative assessment of the gun site's operational efficacy. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Initial baseline evaluations, utilizing conventional iron sights, revealed sobering performance metrics. Out of 12,847 rounds discharged, only 412 targets were successfully hit, culminating in a modest success rate of 3.2%. In stark contrast, subsequent trials conducted with the innovative Mark 14 gyroscopic sights demonstrated a markedly superior outcome. From 11,130 rounds fired, an impressive 1,527 targets were intercepted, elevating the success rate to a remarkable 10.1%. This represented a truly astonishing enhancement, effectively more than tripling the engagement success rate compared to the antiquated conventional sighting mechanisms. However, the most compelling revelations emerged from the detailed observation and long-term tracking of individual gun crews across numerous successive practice sessions. Naval gunners, operating the sophisticated Mark 14 sights, exhibited a significantly accelerated learning curve and performance improvement, primarily because the device's integrated automatic lead calculation system liberated them to concentrate entirely on maintaining a fluid and consistent track of their targets, rather than wrestling with complex mental arithmetic under pressure. A gunner's mate. First Class succinctly articulated the common frustrations experienced with the older aiming systems, stating, "I was always guessing where to aim. Half the time I'd overshoot, half the time I'd undershoot. With the Mark 14, I just keep the target in the sight and squeeze the trigger. The sight does the thinking for me." By the summer of 1943, specifically in June, the eagerly anticipated production models of the Mark 14 sights commenced their deployment to the frontline units of the Pacific Fleet. Their inaugural engagement in actual combat unfolded on November 20th, 1943, amidst the intense invasion of the Gilbert Islands, specifically from the deck of the USS Lexington, positioned approximately 50 miles to the northeast of the fiercely contested Tarawa Atoll. An aviation ordnance man second class instinctively took up his position, hunkering down behind the formidable 40mm Bofors gun, as the carrier's sophisticated radar system detected the unmistakable signatures of approaching Japanese aircraft. The inbound Betty bombers maintained an initial altitude of 15,000 feet before initiating their precipitous attack dives, rapidly accelerating beyond 350 miles per hour as they converged on the American task force below. A tense cry sliced through the air from the gun director operator. "Bogies inbound, bearing 2 I-70. In a swift, practiced motion, the gunner pivoted his weapon, bringing it to bear on the rapidly approaching enemy aircraft. His gaze fixed through the innovative Mark 14 gyroscopic sight. The brilliant, illuminated reticle within the sight precisely indicated the optimal aiming point, dynamically recalibrating itself in real time as he expertly maintained his track on the plunging bomber. At a distance of 4,000 yards, the leading Japanese aircraft entered his effective engagement envelope. Without hesitation, he unleashed a torrent of 40mm shells, a continuous stream directed purposefully at the hostile aircraft. The incandescent tracers from his rounds arced gracefully ahead of the target, striking precisely at the future position predicted with uncanny accuracy by the Mark 14 sight. The enemy bomber disintegrated spectacularly in midair, its flaming wreckage plummeting into the churning sea below. A triumphant shout of "Got him!" erupted from the gunner, even as his weapon was already swiveling to engage the next incoming assailant. In a remarkably brief engagement lasting merely 15 minutes, the American task force successfully neutralized 11 Japanese aircraft, while sustaining only negligible damage to a single destroyer. This exceptionally favorable kill ratio signified a profound and absolute reversal of fortunes compared to earlier encounters, during which Japanese aviators had frequently managed to breach American air defense perimeters with relative impunity. However, the most unequivocal and harrowing demonstration of the Mark 14's transformative efficacy would emerge during the desperate kamikaze assaults launched against the American fleet in the Philippines. On October 25, 1944, a gunner's mate second class, serving gallantly aboard the illustrious USS Enterprise, was manning a 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft cannon, outfitted with Dr. Draper's groundbreaking gyroscopic sight. As Japanese dive bombers, part of the inaugural organized kamikaze assault, plummeted menacingly towards his aircraft carrier, he diligently locked onto the leading enemy aircraft, using his Mark 14 gun sight. The intricate gyroscopic mechanism within the sight instantaneously and automatically computed the precise lead angle required, even as the kamikaze pilot plunged at a blistering speed of 400 miles per hour. With unwavering resolve, he maintained the target perfectly centered within his sight's reticle, unleashing a sustained and disciplined barrage of fire. His expertly aimed shells found their mark, intercepting the plummeting aircraft at a critical distance of 2,000 yards, utterly obliterating it before it could inflict any damage upon the vital carrier. Across the deck and throughout the task force, scores of other gun crews, similarly equipped with the revolutionary Mark 14 sights, replicated this remarkable success. The concerted kamikaze offensive, which had been intended to inflict catastrophic devastation upon the American task force, was instead thwarted, resulting in crippling losses for the Japanese and only negligible damage to the American vessels. The quantitative enhancement in performance was nothing short of astonishing. The consolidated anti-aircraft results from the Philippine campaign painted a clear picture. Out of a total of 1,947 kamikaze aircraft engaged, a formidable 1,531 were successfully shot down by ships fortified with Mark 14 sights, yielding an extraordinary success rate of 78.6%. The profound shift in combat effectiveness was unequivocally underscored by the reaction emanating from the enemy's ranks. Decrypted Japanese communications evinced an escalating sense of alarm and consternation regarding the newly formidable efficacy of American anti-aircraft defenses. Commander Yoshio, leading the 343rd Naval Air Group, conveyed a grim assessment to his senior command. American defensive fire has become devastatingly accurate. Our pilots report that enemy tracers now intercept our aircraft with mechanical precision. Previous tactics of high-speed approaches no longer provide adequate protection. Even Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, widely recognized as Japan's foremost aerial ace, remarked with palpable concern, "Something has changed in American gunnery. Their shells now arrive exactly where our aircraft will be, not where they are. It is as if their gunners can see into the future." Perhaps the most stark and revealing appraisal originated from Admiral Takejiro Onishi, the commanding officer of Japanese naval aviation, who declared, "American ships have become nearly impossible to attack. Their anti-aircraft fire achieves hit rates that approach theoretical maximums. We must assume that every approach to enemy vessels will result in our aircraft's destruction. Beyond the compelling numerical data, the human ramifications of this technological leap were profound and far-reaching." Naval personnel who had previously endured the harrowing experience of observing enemy aircraft bear down on their vessels with a sense of utter powerlessness now found themselves armed with genuinely effective defensive armaments. A seaman first class serving aboard the USS Franklin eloquently captured this sentiment in a letter to his family. "We don't feel helpless anymore. When the Japs come calling, our guns work now, really work. When we shoot at them, they go down. It's like having a guardian angel watching over every ship in the fleet." By the cessation of hostilities, the ubiquitous Mark 14 gun sight had been integrated into more than 85,000 anti-aircraft guns across both American and British naval forces. This groundbreaking apparatus, once derided by specialists as impossible and even insane, had ultimately delivered kill rates that dramatically surpassed even the most sanguine pre-war forecasts, fundamentally altering naval anti-aircraft engagements from a realm of desperate aspiration into one of quantifiable and lethal certainty. On that momentous day of August 15, 1945, in the historic waters of Tokyo Bay, as General MacArthur formally received Japan's instruments of surrender aboard the majestic battleship Missouri, virtually every significant United States Navy vessel present in the harbor was equipped with numerous Mark 14 gyroscopic gun sights. The impossible invention, which had been summarily dismissed by naval authorities just 4 years prior, had now been universally adopted as indispensable standard equipment on American warships across the globe. The conclusive statistical data unequivocally underscored the immense and pivotal contribution of Dr. Draper's ingenuity to the ultimate Allied triumph. Total Mark 14 gun sights produced 85,000 units. Enemy aircraft destroyed 23,147. American lives saved estimated 50,000. Comprehensive post-war analyses subsequently demonstrated that naval vessels outfitted with the Mark 14 sights attained anti-aircraft kill rates an astonishing 15 times greater than those achieved by ships relying on traditional gunnery methods. The sheer mathematical precision afforded by the device was truly astounding. What began as a relatively simple gyroscopic mechanism fundamentally revolutionized naval air defense, transitioning it from a state of largely ineffective desperation to one of assured and lethal effectiveness. Yet, the most compelling attestations to its impact originated from the very individuals who experienced this profound transformation firsthand. A lieutenant commander from the USS Hornet eloquently articulated in his concluding patrol report, "The Mark 14 sight gave us confidence we never had before. We knew that when Japanese aircraft approached our ships, we could stop them. That psychological change was as important as the technical improvement." Perhaps the most poignant and heartfelt homage came from a gunner's mate first class, who declared, "Dr. Draper never set foot on a warship, never fired a shot in anger, never wore a uniform, but because of his invention, thousands of American sailors came home alive. We owe him everything." Despite the monumental nature of his accomplishment, Dr. Draper himself maintained a characteristic and unwavering humility regarding his pivotal invention. Time twos. When journalists sought him out for interviews post-war, eager to hear about his revolutionary gun sight, he unfailingly redirected all praise and recognition towards the dedicated Navy personnel who had so effectively operated and implemented his device in combat. "I just solved a mathematics problem," Draper consistently maintained. "The real heroes are the young men who use those sights to defend their ships and their shipmates." Dr. Draper steadfastly declined all overtures for commercial endorsements, celebrity engagements, and lucrative Hollywood film adaptations. Instead, he promptly resumed his scholarly pursuits at his MIT laboratory, dedicating his formidable intellect to pioneering new frontiers in the realm of precision instrumentation. His burgeoning wartime renown, in fact, became a source of personal discomfort and embarrassment that he actively sought to circumvent. The profound impact and enduring legacy of the Mark 14 transcended the immediate exigencies of World War II. The fundamental gyroscopic principles that Dr. Draper innovatively applied to anti-aircraft gunnery subsequently laid the bedrock for the development of contemporary inertial navigation systems. Furthermore, his subsequent pioneering endeavors in the field of missile guidance following the war directly paved the way for the sophisticated navigation computers utilized in NASA's Apollo program. In the present day, every American submarine is equipped with Trident ballistic missiles, whose guidance mechanisms are direct descendants of Dr. Draper's groundbreaking wartime innovations. The esteemed Charles Stark Draper Laboratory persists as the exclusive provider of navigation systems for the United States Navy's strategic weaponry, a direct and unbroken lineage traceable back to that rudimentary shoebox prototype initially conceived and tested in a humble MIT basement. The direct lineage of sophisticated modern instruments undeniably stretches from that rudimentary, unrefined shoebox prototype, which underwent rigorous testing within an MIT basement. Today, advanced fighter aircraft are equipped with head-up displays, HUDs, that project crucial targeting data directly onto pilot windscreens, operating on the identical fundamental principle Dr. Draper ingeniously applied in his pioneering gyroscopic gun sight. Similarly, cutting-edge anti-aircraft systems continue to leverage gyroscopic stabilization, ensuring exceptionally precise target tracking and engagement against aerial threats. However, the profound moral lesson embedded within this narrative extends far beyond mere advancements in military technology, offering universal insights into innovation. Draper triumphed precisely where a multitude of seasoned specialists and recognized authorities had encountered insurmountable obstacles, primarily because he tackled an age-old challenge with an entirely novel viewpoint. His rather unorthodox professional history, diverging significantly from typical armaments development, proved to be an invaluable asset. This non-traditional expertise uniquely enabled him to discern viable remedies and perceive effective answers that had entirely eluded the grasp of highly qualified weapons engineers who were perhaps constrained by conventional wisdom and established methodologies. Indeed, a particularly insightful remark from an MIT colleague perfectly encapsulates this spirit of innovative defiance. The colleague once noted with a touch of admiration that Doc didn't know that automatic lead calculation was impossible, so he went ahead and invented it anyway. This pithy observation underscores a profound truth. Draper was blissfully unaware of the prevailing belief that automating the complex computations required to predict a target's future position, the lead necessary for interception, was utterly unachievable. Unburdened by such preconceived notions, he simply proceeded to create this groundbreaking system, fundamentally altering the dynamics of aerial combat. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. This remarkable individual, who fundamentally transformed the very nature of aerial warfare, displayed an extraordinary degree of humility throughout his career. He explicitly made no demands for accolades, consistently eschewed public acclaim, and disavowed any personal triumph, never seeking renown for his monumental achievements. Furthermore, he harbored no commercial ambitions, pursuing no financial gain from his groundbreaking inventions. Instead, his enduring impact is profoundly evident and resonates through countless facets of modern technology and human experience. His lasting contribution lives on in every highly accurate ordnance delivery mechanism, every sophisticated guidance apparatus underpinning contemporary navigation, and most poignantly in the life of every American serviceman who returned safely from conflict, often unaware that their safety was a direct consequence of one brilliant MIT professor's unwavering commitment, his steadfast refusal to accept the widely held notion that accurately hitting moving targets was an impossible feat.